Totally fucked up that up again. But looks like Rick didn't quite get the connection to make it on here.
Well, maybe
he's hanging with us kind of, but he's not able to participate. He'll have to come off and come back in, and that's okay. We'll give him 1 second, and then when he comes on, we'll show our great sponsors. And but for right now, we have Jim Slame and myself, Jamie Lowell, and soon to be joined by Rick Thompson and many others throughout the day. We're talking about a lot of cool stuff. Last week, we focused on the bills, House Bill 5300, 5302, and the hearing that had taken place, and the intensity of all the implications of what these things would do, how absurd it is. These people who don't have a clue of what they're talking about in terms of the history and the culture and the nature of the product, and just showing up and demonstrating that in mass. And the people who are sitting there like looking at it and believing it. Here's Adam. Mr. Hashbash has joined us. Rick is trying to get a little bit better of a connection.
Hey, now.
Give him a minute. And we're going to have to talk about it a little bit more this week because it remains a prevalent issue. But we also had Cannajam, and we'll talk about that. And a lot of people that went there also have opinions on this issue, so I'm sure we'll have some dual conversations. Here's Rick. There he is. Let's see if the connection stays good enough, long enough for a little sponsorship action here.
I'm long enough and good enough. No problem.
All right,
it's easy, Rick.
Let's put that to the test. Here we go.
My man.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe is sponsored by the Botanical Company, Redemption Cannabis, Real Leaf Solutions, Detroit Nutrient Company, and GrowGreenMI.com.
And 420 Promotions.
And 420 Promotions.
And the stickers were a hit.
Yes, I have some too. Mr. Hashbash manned our Michigan Normal table and had both the stickers and the foldable trays on our table. Thank you, Adam, for the
source. Anna was one of the great sponsors of great volunteers of the event, and worked the entire show and helped out. Everybody saying hello.
I had a great time. I was happy to participate at Cannajam. Nice. From Nature, Michigan.
Right on.
We had a lot of interest in Senate Bill 631 while we were there, getting signatures for a letter that we're sending to the committee there.
Yeah, that was cool, man. I mean, Chuck Green was geeked about that. He came over and was like, they've got like 3.5 pages.
Well, by the end of it, we had 10 or 12. I mean, it was
nice.
Awesome. Yeah.
It is very cool. So, we're going to talk about that a lot. We got a few people joining us today who are also there. And so as that goes down, we'll talk about that. And all of us on here right now, we're there, so we can get into that. But before we get too far, I did want to mention that Michael Comorn and Comorn Law were really driving forces behind this thing. I did a lot of the communicating and promotions and stuff like that. So I got recognized as being involved and congratulated for it a lot. But Comorn and Comorn Law and that team did a lot of great stuff to make this happen. So definitely need to give them credit.
Yeah. Can I give a shout out to Dan, Terrence, and Anna, because they were all over the place for everybody on that day?
No,
I can't.
No.
Can we edit that out then?
Yeah. For the people unfortunately watching live caught that, but we'll take that out so the masses don't have to suffer through it later on.
All right, thanks.
No, all those people were amazing. I mean, I know everybody says it, but if you saw everything behind the scenes kind of leading up to this thing coming together, it was quite spectacular. And there was a lot of extra layers of crap that go on top of an already, kind of a stressful situation of putting an event together. So they deserve a lot of credit. They did a lot of work all day. I mean, leading up to that time and then all day. Jim Powers, man, held down the South End.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Music was top notch. The attendance was good for a first event in a big public park like that. No hassles, no troubles. Once again, another successful event without any emergencies, let's just call them.
Yep. So And we're going to talk about this more. There's going to be people that attended that are going to come on and join in that discussion. Let us know what they thought about it. There's 100+ things that need to be done differently for another time around, and coulda, woulda, shoulda, and stuff. But it went down, and it was awesome. But I wanted to bring up a couple of things. I know Adam wants to discuss some stuff too. And we'll have a future show, hopefully. And we covered this issue before, and Rick got the attorney for Bay Mills to come on and discuss their approach to getting a commercial cannabis system up and running for them, for their nation. And this was after trying for about a year to contact the state and work out some type of a parallel program, something that would mesh with the existing state laws and stuff. But they didn't get any response, so they decided just to go ahead and do it themselves, and they did. And they're located mainly up in the UP, although they own property throughout the state. And lately in the paper is an announcement of their operation coming to Flint Township, right where Rick is. And their system includes taking cannabis in from caregivers and a lot of things that are less restrictive and costly than our existing state system. And I just think that's really cool. That's one of the things we discussed when she was on, about how we need somebody to do a model that is less prohibitive than our existing model to help try to put some pressure on what we do here on a statewide basis. And it seems like that is beginning. I like to say,
Have they received any federal pushback?
No, this has been a while now, and they're moving forward. I assume not, anyway, because they keep moving forward. I'd like to see her back on the show, and we can ask her all that stuff.
Yeah, there's several, at least maybe a dozen cannabis retail operations in native lands already here in Michigan. So, seems like a successful model. The place that Bay Mills is going to be bringing into, Flint Township has not opted in to cannabis businesses at all, which is why all the cannabis businesses are in Mount Morris Township to the north, or Burton to the east. This particular location would be right behind the very large and still popular Genesee Valley Mall, not on the main strip, which is Miller Road, but close enough. It would be probably the most advantageous retail location in Genesee County if they're able to get that done. My experience with that particular property is it's weeds and trees right now. So if they're going to convert it over, they'll need to get started soon.
Isn't that Shelley Smith's podcast?
Weeds and trees?
Yeah. I'm just kidding.
Could be.
Very similar. Very similar.
She was at Cannajam also, and seemed to have just a wonderful time. She's just a great person. I know she's not on right now. I'm not trying to pander. Shelley's just wonderful. She's just cool.
She will join us later. We'll have to see. But weeds and weeds.
Decrim Nature, Flint is starting to get some movement. So anybody up in Flint, start looking around for those groups. They're forming to decriminalize plant medicines and fungi in the city of Flint.
That is awesome. It's also awesome that you got so much public support for the Senate bill. That would really make a huge difference.
Jim, explain that Senate bill, because we've talked about the number, but not the content.
The content is basically allowing growing, gathering, and gifting for every resident of Michigan. It allows for like a small commerce in therapeutic use, where you can hire somebody to basically give you your setting, and as a therapist, they're going to be able to administer the proper dose and take you through your journey to help you. A lot of people need some direction on this sort of thing. It does not corporatize all these beautiful plants or fungi. It actually just allows for the growing, gathering, and gifting. So there won't be any dispensary selling this. It won't be at your neighborhood dispensary. This is to protect indigenous, and BIPOC communities that utilize this for their culture, and then people who are also having the need to move away from some of the Western choices they've had for medicine and to move to something more natural while having those protections. Again, it's a decriminalization, not a legalization of these plant medicines and fungi.
But that's the beginning of this entire process.
Yes, it is.
Get there, and the same challenge against big money interests and all that kind of stuff is probably around the corner.
Well, that definitely is. But the protections that we can provide all those people, I think, is really important right now.
Get the sick and dying off the battlefield, as they said during the medical marijuana process here a lot.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man. That's a very, very awesome movement with some energy and some success to point to, and just a lot of stuff lined up, a lot of participation, a lot of understanding.
Yeah. If you go to the decrimnaturemi.org website, you can find all the information you need to contact your legislature and to send them a letter, and also to send all those on the committee for Senate Bill 631 that was introduced by Jeff Irwin, Senator Jeff Irwin, and Senator Adam Hoyer.
Jim, this is a television program that's broadcast around the planet, but primarily in the United States. What other places in the U.S. are actually doing something similar? I know there are some pretty exciting things happening in the world of entheogens.
Well, we follow the lead of Denver, Oakland, California, Santa Cruz, California. Chicago or Illinois is starting to do some things. Somerville, Massachusetts, and Cambridge, Massachusetts have decriminalized. I believe Vermont's doing some things. Hey, Anna. There are things happening. Even some of these states that you wouldn't think it's happening, but like Iowa and Missouri, I believe in their books they have for people to be able to choose to use these plants if they're at the end of life. It's not for people with PTSD in those states, like I mentioned, Iowa and Missouri, but it's to help people at least have that choice if they want it. And that's a good start too for states like that. I've heard other states, Seattle, the biggest city in the country, recently just decriminalized medicinal plants and plants. So it's happening. But the other thing we're seeing is kind of a shift backwards. In Santa Cruz, for example, they're now criminalizing the use of cacti, mescaline-containing cacti, to protect the peyote cactus because of its endangered status right now among the tribes. They don't want anyone to want to touch it right now. The tribes want to take care of it themselves.
I mean, there could be some legitimacy in that policy, right? I mean,
whatever the tribes want, as far as I'm concerned, in that case.
Right.
Some people suggest, well, it's grown in the ground, so everyone should be able to use it, and that's a great argument. But there's also some protections in people's, religious and cultural use.
Yeah, that's a big consideration. That's something that shouldn't just be overlooked. But this is not something that is obviously just being utilized conveniently as a way not to allow, like we see here all the time, just conveniently utilizing circumstances to try to stop as much progress as possible at any given turn. It doesn't mean that's what I would assume right off the bat, but as you explain it more, there's some bigger purpose behind that. So just interesting. So I also wanted to bring up that the Cannabis Caucus, the Michigan Cannabis Caucus, had a fundraiser Sunday night, and presenting there was Mike McCurdy and Marshall Klabow and Zara Abbas. I'll put that on. Michael Thompson, the first prisoner under this ability to try to get clemency from the governor, and working with the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition and Last Prisoner Project and all the groups and organizations under that umbrella. Gave a very moving speech. Every time I see him give a presentation or just talk about these things, he gets into it and he's connected to it and he feels it, and he broke down a little bit during this one too, and it was pretty moving. Ellie Sabat and Victoria Burton Harris, the prosecutor and associate prosecutors from Washtenaw County, who obviously did a great job at Antio Fest too. We're there, and it's really refreshing to see these people with real decision-making capacity have these kinds of perspectives. And then the prosecutor from Ingham County, Carol Seaman, was there. She was awesome too. I ended up being able to have a nice, probably 20-minute, 30-minute conversation with her about stuff during that. And there was also a candidate for City Council of Lansing at large, Clarissa Duckett Freeman, who is related to Tico Duckett. But she's very understanding of these issues. Sounds like she would be great for the council, like much needed in there. And it was just really cool to attend such a aware and progressive kind of discussion on these issues. And the caucus could use some money. Just created a entity with which to collect funds. And there's an Act Blue account. I'll have to get the information. I probably should have it since I just brought it up, but I don't at the moment. But I'll get it here during the show. And that caucus has been really active in trying to work against the bills that we're all in opposition of as well. And I've done many meetings, and I've been involved in some. Zara, Leah, myself, and Rick were on one this morning. And, trying to do it from many different ways, many different angles. So,
just released today, National Normal. Adam and I are on the board of directors of Michigan Normal. National Normal just issued an action alert in regards to these terrible bills that seek to curtail patient access to cannabis here in the state of Michigan. National ACE has been involved. We've seen a lot of attention on this particular issue from media, as well as from some of the national names in cannabis law reform. This is a big deal. I know that the legislature may not consider it as such, but nationally, what they're trying to do here, it's a big deal.
it is. And we're getting more interest from national people on this whole thing too, I think, on our side. And hopefully all that becomes very helpful. And then there are some, it was very helpful too. The MICAA did officially submit in opposition during the hearing last week in opposition of the bills, and has since been pretty open about being in opposition to these bills, and will willingly let that be known and discuss the reasons why. And that's very helpful to have the largest industry association versus the one which has 300 members versus the one that has 10 or 12 or something, saying that they are in opposition to this. So that is much appreciated, and they made the right decision. And she added that it was unanimous when they asked, through their process, if that's the position they should take, and it was no question.
It's possible by 4:00 next Tuesday, 1 week from today, the Regulatory Reform Committee may have voted on these bills and passed them out of committee and onto the full floor of the House. They have a meeting tomorrow. It's an awkward day because of a situation in the House. They're not expected to take the bills up then, but they are expected to take the bills up again next week. And if they do so, we should encourage them to take additional testimony, because right now it's possible they may not hear from any patients at all on the day that they vote, which I think is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice, and I think is cause for our very fervent effort to not reelect any of these people that participate in that, especially Committee Chairman Houck.
Yep, especially. And I would say that, if they don't allow testimony, it speaks in volumes what they're really doing. And if they thought there was a boycott then or now, wait till they see what happens if they even get these passed. So
I agree. This is, what this boycott is. It's been effective, and it's creative people, putting out these memes and adding names to the list, Medical Mondays, and some others. And it's ruffled a lot of feathers and caused people not to be included in things, or business not to happen. And, it's had some effect, but that's what it is. It's this, decentralized social media kind of campaign. It's kind of fun for some people, and a real concerted effort, though, man, that's a different story. There's a few notches that this thing could go to, and that hasn't gone there yet. I agree, Jim.
Yeah, we can definitely get it amped up if we need to.
Hey, and so Adam brought some stuff up earlier in a pre-show kind of discussion, and shared an article with us, and wanted to bring to our attention some stuff. So I want to make sure we have some time for that before we get back into Cannajam and these bills and stuff like that. What's going on?
Yeah. Well, we're here in Detroit on our Sorry, it's 420.
Happy 420.
And on our local news for the last day and a half has been this story about the Stellantis plant, where they make Jeep vehicles, and I think it relates to us like you wouldn't believe, because it's a great example of how it should be done. And for some reason, we're still the redheaded stepchild of, enforcement, and we're treated differently. So the neighborhood around this plant has been making phone calls repeatedly that there's an odor. And after repeated phone calls, the state finally decided that they were actually going to look into this odor. At the same time, the company has hired a very expensive firm to come in and tell them, A, what the odor is, where it's coming from, and two, how to abate it so they don't bother their neighbors. Now, none of that has anything to do with marijuana, other than we all remember our friend Judith Pontus in Ypsilanti Township, whose neighbor called the city, I believe, and reported odor from her grow, at which point they responded with 5 sheriff's deputies, and she ended up in court with charges. This whole government reaction to a plant that's producing some sort of chemical odor shows you that they have the ability to treat us in the same manner. They just choose not to. And there's no reason that large-scale grows can't happen anywhere. And this misnomer that the odor is a problem that we've heard about everywhere since the beginning of time, odors can be dealt with. And here's a fine example on the nightly news. And all I saw was, oh, look, they're about to abate the odor at the big plant because the neighbors are unhappy. Geez, why can't they treat me and my friends that way? Do we not pay? Well, here's the funny thing. Ready? Me and my friends, to use lack of a better term, people who own houses, people who own buildings, we pay a lot more in property taxes than that plant. I can guarantee you that. Because I guarantee you that plant has been given all kinds of abatements so that they don't have to pay property tax. And the reality is that until we're treated like that, the legislators would never think to treat corporate America the way they treat us. And that was my point. I just see that as a glaring, hey, fuck you. And I wish I had the minutes to explain this to these committee members and say, this is how stupid it is. You've all heard the term odor before and it being a problem. Well, here's how you deal with odor in the weed game. You go to our friend George and you buy a big filter and you put fans on it, do appropriate things, just like the scrubbers on the plants that you require all over town. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. But I thought that was a glaring example on the nightly news, and it'll be in the news for a minute because it's a big story.
And, this is not unique to Michigan. It's not unique to Detroit. Cannabis consumers nationwide are given a really hard go by their local municipalities if their cannabis plants get a little stinky when it gets close to harvest time. And Adam's point is exactly correct. Here's an example of how you can do it better. Instead of coming there with 5 deputies to grandmother Judith Pontius's house,
well,
hey, let's talk about it.
The funny thing is that the 3 or 4, depending on how you look at it, news stations in Detroit all had an individual spend the day outside at the plant today so that they could smell the odors throughout the day when the neighbors claim, they ramp things up at the factory and all of a sudden you smell the odor. So they're all out there covering this. And that got me to thinking, boy, I wonder if I could take them next to a big grow somewhere and take them over by the house closest by. And let's sit on the porch and tell me what the odor is that you smell and how noxious it is. Because at the same token, and Rick Thompson, you'll understand this, They don't close these places down because of the supposed crime they're committing. Why did they close Big Daddy's down, Rick? It was a nuisance, right?
Just
Isn't that
township, yes.
It's the term, nuisance. When they have nothing else, they say you're a nuisance.
And the law allows them some pretty big latitude on how they apply that term and some pretty wicked penalties for people that violate it.
Right. And that's why I like being a good nuisance. I mean, now's our chance to be the real nuisance with these people. Let them know how wrong they are in the way they're treating us.
Little John Lewis, good trouble.
There you go.
How about bringing in this guy?
There you go. There's a good nuisance right there.
I don't think we call Mr. Sinclair a nuisance. I don't think that's right.
I'm a pest.
That's why you garnered some attention in the '60s in the first place.
Well,
Big nuisance, then.
we refer to that as a hero, not as a nuisance. But welcome to the broadcast, Mr. John Sinclair, cannabis legend and hero in many, many different ways. Thanks for joining us.
Participant of Cannajam
Happy belated birthday.
and
Thanks.
birthday boy.
What a fun
Rick, I
time.
enjoyed your photo in my magazine that I read for, the Marijuana Report. Did you see it yet?
I don't.
You're giving
Read
me
that,
the
Rick.
finger.
Oh, that one, yeah. That one's been in the magazine a few times in different.
Who is it? Me doing
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's a famous
you,
picture.
Like you.
Yeah, he owes me money for that
About
too.
you.
He's never paid me for the rights to use that photo, so he owes me money.
So Bird from Medical Monday says hi, John.
Adam, what you know, baby?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm all right.
Doing all right, man.
So, John, you were very honored at your 80th birthday party up in Flint and the Genesee County Compassion Center. Senator Jeff Irwin drove from Ann Arbor to present you with a document. Can you tell our listeners about that?
Yeah, I haven't really studied it. I gave it to my daughter to see about putting a thing up so I can hang it on the wall.
Well, as we
But,
discussed last week, it goes over a lot of gives headlines about a lot of the great stuff that you've been involved with over
Yeah,
the years,
the
such as Hash Bash and a lot of stuff.
It was mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Have the senator saying all this shit. And signed by the governor and the lieutenant governor. I liked it.
Yeah.
I like all those things. I got one week before that from the lawyers. Michigan lawyers.
Cannabis law section of the Michigan Bar Association.
Thank you.
It's a lot of words.
That's what it was, though. But they didn't give me no plaque or nothing. They gave me 2 bags full of goodies.
Good goodies?
No,
Weed goodies. Yeah, from their clients.
clients.
Well, that's cool.
You know how lawyers are. They didn't spend a penny. But they got their clients to give me this stuff, and then they didn't print up the thing because that would have cost something. I know lawyers from the inside, believe me. With all due respect.
Yep. They're wonderful people, especially those people in the cannabis law section, most of them.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I love them.
Well, the guy who heads it up was giving testimony during the public input of the MRA rulemaking stuff, and there was some issues with that. But I'm happy that you were recognized, John.
You had some issues?
Yeah, there were.
John, did you get another trophy or
Sure.
something?
Hey.
Yep. Did you get one of these, John?
Yeah. Tell them about that.
Well, I'll tell them about it. We, of course, on the Jazz Cabbage Cafe had a very famous episode in which John talked about how his particular case in conjunction with the White Panthers helped to perhaps bring down corrupt President Richard Milhouse Nixon. Was very popular with our listeners. It was submitted to a trophy, an award service, and we were awarded a communicator award for that particular episode. And John, of course, John makes the episode what it is. So he was given a wonderful trophy, just like this.
Feels like I was sitting right here at my desk.
Yep, and it's a very nice thing.
I'm gonna see if I can show that.
Excuse me.
Yep, in the category of individual episode and podcast called "The Changing of America."
Is
And
this
Jamie's
up?
going to play the video of you receiving that.
Let's see if this works.
Deborah?
That's Deb, Rick, Jeremy Rapinski, Adam, and myself.
Well, we have another presentation for you too. Now, you remember when you were on Jazz Cabbage Cafe, we talked about your experience and how that helped to unseat Richard Nixon.
Yeah.
And you remember the Jazz Cabbage Cafe won a special award for that particular episode.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We did, and we have this
Oh, wow.
for you.
Come on.
Happy birthday, sir.
Come on. Jesus Christ.
That's just a care card.
You spoil it every other day.
It does. Mother,
It's like an Oscar. Can you read out loud what it says?
yeah. I can see it. John Sinclair, public service activism on Jazz Cabbage Cafe, the changing of America.
Communicator
Congratulations, John.
awards.
That's a
Yeah,
job.
congratulations, man.
Yeah, I didn't get one of these from the lawyers.
Congratulations.
I just got, I was, the last thing I did was that Soaring Eagle Casino.
Very cool.
Soaring Eagle Casino, I'm glad you cut me off. No lame place.
Hi, Ryan. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
What's up, Ace?
Ryan Basor from Redemption Cannabis, one of the proud podcasters and podfathers here in Michigan with his show Smokin' Rope.
Yep, we got Jamie Lowell's on it tomorrow to talk about Cannajam.
All right. Looking forward to that, man.
Sorry, I missed you, John and Adam. I got there about 3:30, 3:45, and I think I missed you guys.
Oh, I was there all
Where was
day,
that?
but
You were?
I missed you.
Where?
Yeah. I was sitting in the normal tent all day.
Ah,
Oh, you mean at,
He wouldn't know to look for you there.
Yeah.
that was Kicks.
You know, in
They
the
consider it a success?
yes,
Oh yeah, it was a huge success.
Oh, good.
mm-hmm.
and it was to benefit, and we'll see what happens here in a couple days when everything gets sorted out. But the John Sinclair Foundation, as well as Redemption Foundation, represented by both of you guys right now.
What's
So I
up?
like talking about Cannajam with everybody here who was there, and with you guys in particular.
There's his faces on on the issue.
And it was cool that you performed, man, with with Johnny Evans on saxophone.
Yeah, we haven't did that for a while. He called me up and said they're having this thing in Ypsilanti. Do you why don't we go up there and play a couple numbers? I said, sounds good to me. So he called him up and got a slot, I think, from you.
I know.
Is there a
that,
chance, John, Jamie, that saxophonist that played with John, is that the same saxophonist that played with Echoes of Pink Floyd?
No.
I got to tell you, the saxophonist that was playing with John was super great.
Yeah, good. He's from the Holland
Loved
Diablo.
that guy. I loved them both. Don't get me wrong.
Well-
The Echoes of Pink Floyd, no complaints at all about that. Was wonderful.
They're
But John,
close friends.
yep, I heard your bit from a distance, and I just thought it was great.
Yeah, it was.
Johnny and that band are good friends.
Yeah, the guys from Hyped Up Live Sessions and the people doing a lot of the production and stuff did get that recorded. I haven't seen it yet, but looking forward to checking that out again when that comes out. I thought that was particularly good, man. You were hitting it right with them a lot on some of that stuff and really getting into it. It was
We've been doing this for 40 years.
yeah.
Ain't nothing.
Yeah, so
new
I should
there.
be surprised that you actually did a good job. Yeah.
We've had a lot of practice.
It was quite awesome. It was particularly awesome. It always is, but this one was good, man. This one was very special.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What I do, I'm a poet.
Jamie mentioned, just sort of in passing, we did have Ypsilanti City Council members walk through and were impressed by the event. There were other folks there of influence in the
Representative
community.
Johnson was there.
There's going to be a lot of positivity about this going into year 2.
Former city council member and supporter and member of the Decrim Nature movement, Ann Bannister was there, which was pretty cool too.
I thought it was.
You have to be nuts not to be there if you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was great because this was kind of this is the first one that had a regular ticket price and that I know of the first 3 for a regular show. It was a great deal. But then, when you usually go to ball games or, sporting events or other concerts, they jack you on expensive beer and food, and the provisioning centers that were there were, having a sale off like with crazy great deals. I mean, it would have made sense for people to just buy a ticket and come in and buy a bunch of cannabis at a great price, better than the stores. So that was cool to see.
Well,
Sometimes in licensed events now,
let's
people are
start
concerned.
getting a caregiver.
Some people are concerned about not being able to bring their own cannabis into some licensed consumption events. Clearly, there was no check valve there. You brought in whatever you wanted.
I had mine.
Yep, and I brought some, and I purchased a bunch. While
I
was
don't
there.
remember there ever being a thing where you couldn't, but if somebody said that they looked at the site or whatever, and that's what it said, so I'll take them at their
That's what
word.
the state wants you to do.
Yes,
Oh,
that is
okay.
what the state
They
wants.
want you to tremble. Fuck the state.
Every time we have an example that shows we don't need those silly rules, those rules become more silly. So,
Well, so you should get them off the fucking books.
we're trying.
It was great to see
And I
people
get
just
the
walking.
biggest kick out of this thing about the safety of the herb and how these people are concerned about our safety.
Mhm.
Jesus Christ, I almost puked when I read that woman talking about that shit. What do they care about your safety, these rich people? Not a goddamn thing. And how did safety get to be an issue? I've been smoking weed almost every day for 60 years. January 1962, it'll be 60 years in January. I never had a problem with, sometimes you get some weed that you couldn't get high on. That was the only ones that I ran into trouble with. What are they concerned about? I don't get it.
They're concerned about not
Using
getting
it-
their money. That's what they're concerned
Yeah,
Yeah,
using it as
yeah.
hysteria to try to gain more
Thank you
control.
very much.
about.
Remember
They
the
need to get
kids?
control.
Yep. These are all familiar talking points from the 1950s that just get recycled every decade. The kids, it's not healthy. Somehow it's going to be dangerous to communities, even though it doesn't have any effect that we've ever been able to see. So,
And
Other
because the industry's been duped into testing, the government now tells you that, well, testing is the answer.
Yeah.
I've decided that, we've had testing probably for 20 years by machine, and there's no way that 20 years worth of machine is going to outweigh thousands of years worth of human body testing.
No.
If it was harmful and there was damage done by any of these problems, we would know that. The only problem marijuana
We'd be damaged.
but the only damage ever been done by marijuana is the marijuana that the U.S. government sprayed with Paraquat.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, of course, they have these
Don't forget
attitudes.
the
They
locking
create-
up.
do you remember not that long ago where we've seen news reports of people lacing cannabis with fentanyl? How
Of course,
much of a
never,
lie that
it's
is?
never been found.
You can't even do that. So,
I've never heard
I
of
mean,
such and such.
they're still trying really hard to fabricate an image of cannabis that goes contrary to what popular opinion is. And every time they try this, people lose faith in the government a little bit more.
And what about that new study that just came out, or they made up, whoever the psychiatrist of something, that heavy marijuana users are seeing breakthrough cases of COVID?
COVID, yeah, right.
Yeah, because they're passing somebody infected
What's
is passing a
happening?
joint around or something. What was the?
We're getting
Yeah.
COVID?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That breakthrough cases are pots influence the amount of breakthrough cases.
Yeah.
So
Breakthrough
people who
cases
are-
being cases where someone's fully vaccinated and still gets
Right.
COVID.
Right.
They
Rick,
broke
to your point about the generational thing and how it just changes, and the same thing with the legislature in Lansing. We have changes that come in the legislature. It was definitely apparent at the hearing we had where people didn't know the law, people didn't know anything, and they're now in these positions where it's been 10 years over since the original law passed.
Jim, you mean lawmakers didn't know the law?
13 years.
Exactly. I'm referring
Not
to
8 years, 13 years. That's a long time.
long
They
time.
lose historical
Somebody
perspective.
that was
you know.
born then is now 13 years old.
I'll say this too.
Smoke weed.
You can understand why maybe a lawmaker is not 100% up on all the subtle nuances and everything, but you've been a Michigan resident for the last 12, 13 years. You've watched our program grow through the news media and through all of this. To see people who have not even absorbed a base level of knowledge from MLive or from the Detroit Free Press or the Traverse City Record Eagle, wherever they get their news, if you've been ignoring it for 12 years, are you the right person to be sitting in judgment of our industry? I don't think you are.
No. I can answer that.
I like John's answer.
We should be open to listening to those who do know the history and the culture and the nature of the plants.
Oh, are you in the car?
They should have invited us to the table. They still have yet to invite us to the table.
Yeah.
And these
You don't
silly
wanna-
work groups that the state created that some of us may or may not have been a part of are even more ridiculous because they're just placating the masses. That information isn't getting where it needs to go.
Well, I'll challenge that though, Adam, though, because the new Class A micro license is directly a response from the social equity work group. And that's a positive improvement on the old
But that
micro
was-
license. So
That was coming. Didn't need a work group to figure out that the system they have is a failure and we need to make some change.
yeah, but the change was articulated through that work group.
Now, I agree. But,
Your point is taken.
again, it's the same subject as you letting caregivers supply that market.
Yep. There are times when government seems to just be going through the motions. For example, we had this wonderfully awful hearing on 5300 through 5302, plus 5319, 20, and 21. And 75% of the time was taken up by government employees and paid lobbyists. And now it looks as if there may not be a second testimony opportunity for patients to be able to get their message out before committee members vote on it. That would be government doing their job badly. That's what it would be.
Well, then it would be in keeping with all past activity.
Well, if you want to prove us right when we say you're a bastard, just do that, because that absolutely proves us right.
Well, we might as well be one side.
Yep. Charlato says specialty grower license is a Trojan horse appearing to grant access to caregivers on the surface, but completely eliminates them by requiring municipalities to opt in, which we all know they will not. And Charlato is very right. Just look at how many micro business licenses have been granted by municipalities. Charlato continues. I believe there are only 2 in the entire state. I think there's a couple more than that, but not
4 or
many.
6 maybe, or something like that.
Your point is absolutely correctly stated. When you ask communities to approve a special marijuana grower, these are communities that wouldn't approve the current cannabis system if it was good for them. Unlikely they're going to approve a specialty marijuana grower. Just ridiculous option that absolutely kills the whole concept and belies or betrays their true intention, which was to give something that is actually nothing, to appear to be giving a great gift when in actuality you're giving a ban.
What kind of license do you need anyway? In reality, what do you need to grow some carrots? What
Well,
kind
we
of-
should definitely
what
get
kind of-
there. I mean,
What
you're
kind of fees do you have to pay to grow some lettuce? So you want to grow a lettuce patch and sell it. You have to put up $60,000? I don't think so.
You know,
I
Welcome
think
to the
lettuce
show.
is the shape now, based on their continued embracement of the bullshit rationale for these laws in the first place, which have been proven entirely incorrect.
Adam said it earlier. Our human experience with cannabis goes back thousands of years. And John says, I'll take all of those human trials as more valid than some of these emergent laboratory trials when it comes to the safety of cannabis. But unfortunately, that kind of logic isn't really being weighed in the halls of justice down in Lansing.
Josey, what you got, baby?
Yep. Josey Scoggin, Sons and Daughters United, Great Lakes Expungement Network, so many other things. Welcome to the show. Did you just dance a little bit? I think
I was dancing for you, actually. I was excited. I'm ready to be here. I saw Ryan was here, and I got on, and he left. He must have saw that I was coming. Did you guys tell him?
You got his spot.
He was like, oh, shit, here comes Josey, and he's gone. It's fast, too.
He
got his
did let
spot.
us know that he had to leave, but he said he told me he could come on for a couple seconds, which he did, and I'm happy for that. And he was a big part of our event, as you were there, as you've been to many of these.
Oh, God, yeah, I loved it. I've been to 100% of the licensed legal events here in Michigan. All of them. I feel like the queen of events. The first licensed event was here in my town of Niles. We're about 5 minutes away from Indiana. I did bring Jamie out for the second event, the one here in September, but we had one in Niles on the 31st, first ever licensed event. I know Tatiana Grant was going to do one right before COVID, and it all kind of got messed up from there. But the difference in Cannajam and the response in Niles was crazy, right? So, like, in Niles, we had 20 police officers. The police were demanding that they were the ones to check the IDs and wristband people. They were certain that people were going to buy wristbands and put them on teenagers and send them in there. We did the parking lot both times, but the second time we did the wristbands, right? We put on the wristbands, checked everyone's IDs. If you looked under 60, I made you show me your ID, and I was super pissed about it. But the cops kept coming through and being like, are you guys IDing people? Are you sure you're IDing people? Ooh, Amy Carter is here? Okay.
She is.
So when we went to Genesee, it was amazing. We had like 4 cops there. They all wanted my Fuck Cancer t-shirts. They were like, I want that t-shirt right now. I was like, okay, let's do it. Niles was different in terms of everybody I saw in Niles wasn't from Michigan. I got to tell them all about everything we do here in Michigan. Michigan is more coastline than anybody else. We grow more apples. We have better fucking weed. We have the best, most accessible legal marijuana industry in the nation, right? And I'm not bragging about it.
From Indiana.
Oh yeah, everybody's from Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Tennessee, Ohio. We had a guy that drove from Georgia. He was like, I need to be here. This was the closest legal event. And they've never seen anything like this, right? The ability to go and buy marijuana legally. I think we all remember this. Like when Seattle passed their legalization bill, I went out there and I bought a $30 motherfucking joint. Don't tell my mom, okay? Don't tell her. I bought a joint for $30 fucking dollars. It tasted like fucking dirt. And I got a headache afterwards, and I was super pissed about it. But I told everybody in the world, like, I just bought this fucking legal joint, guys. No one arrested me. Also, fun fact, when I got back to the parking lot, there was a guy in a car with a big bag of weed in his lap, and he was like, did you find everything you needed? And obviously, I looked broke enough to not have. And I got the best weed I've ever smoked from some guy in a parking lot. I mean, it was amazing. And I have smoked a good amount, right? Like, I smoked... That's the hardest part about legalization is all my friends are growing weed now, and I smoke so much fucking shitty weed. Everybody's got the best shit until you smoke it, and you're like, God, thanks for this. Can't call Jim anymore. Not you, Jim. I had a blast, and it's always cool to see nonprofits involved. So when when High Times used to come around and make all their money off of everybody here in the Midwest, here in Michigan, I did a lot of the organizing for the people who. Just because they needed somebody to do it for free and they don't know any organizations, right? But I got a lot of the nonprofits in and organized, and I did this with Adam as well. And the idea that we can participate in these spaces at a rate where, nobody's coming to Sons and Daughters United and giving me money because we have a scholarship program that gives drug offenders $5,000 a semester to return to school. Everybody's like, that's really cool, but they're there to buy my Fuck Cancer shirts, or they're there to smoke pot with my mom. To be honest, my mom out there, I don't know if you guys saw her. She had 3 joints in one motherfucking hand. She's smoking my weed, her weed, and the neighbor's weed. I can't stand it. Well, and so we're just so excited to be included in these spaces. And I got so many people interested in Glenn. I got 16 applications the next day. People are like, I want to expunge my record and I want you to do it for fucking free. Hell yeah, let's do it. I also saw Paul Thailinda there, which I don't know if you guys are as big of a fan of Thailinda as I am, but I really fucking think he's the GOAT. Holy shit. So I like send him clients for Great Lake Expungement Network, and they call me like 3 days later. They're like, I'm on my way to Paul. I'm going to get fingerprinted and get my application in. I'm like, what the fuck is Paul doing?
He's been awesome.
Amazing. He's quick. He's doing better drugs than I am. I can tell you that.
So for our national audience that may not be familiar, Paul Thailinda is a very well-known criminal defense attorney, works out of Grosse Pointe near Detroit. Great guy that's done a lot of stuff for the entire medical marijuana era here in Michigan, 12 years. Was my lawyer at one point.
And he's in Metro Detroit area where there are a lot of applications, and he's just done some very sensible things like group
Oh my
in
god.
the same area together and make
A
sure they're
literal
all
genius.
processed at the same
Like, I
time in the
can't-
same place, so there's not several trips being made to the courthouse and just kind of some stuff like that. It just, I mean,
And everybody loves Paul. He
He's really
gets
made a
it
huge
done
difference.
without being heavy-handed, and that's important. Oftentimes, courts don't like you to come back if you're always ramming things in their face. Paul gets stuff done the nice guy way, and it's a better way.
well, he's doing this because he really wants to contribute to helping out with this cause, not just because he's,
It's true.
getting a lot of work, because he is from it, but he really wants to help out. So he's been doing a lot of stuff that makes sense and help, and has really been helpful to Josey in particular, organizing and stuff like that. So
Yeah, Paul's the shit. Would absolutely recommend. Would hire him right now with all my $0 that I have. I would. He's amazing, honest to God. Every client I send to him sends me good reviews. They're impressed with him. You know, I like to say I'm personable, which means that I just like swear on the phone with my clients and shit. But Paul is honest to God, smart. He's educated. He has this idea, which is, hey, let's take all the same people in the same court, file them. This is what Jamie's talking about with grouping. That way we all go to the court at the same time. So some of these places don't care. The standard now is expungement, right? The idea that last year you could go 20 years without committing offense and be a good guy wasn't enough. You also had to prove that you were a tax-paying, productive member of society and that you were extraordinary in some way. Now, the issue with this is that people who are not extraordinary, you shouldn't have to read to orphans or become a preacher to be able to come back from a crime that you committed 20 years ago. You do the crime, you do the time, and then you pay for that crime until the day that you die or somebody expunges your record for you. But in Michigan, that was never an option. I would say 1 in 20 people may qualify last year. And now we have 64% of anybody that applies that is like qualifying for expungement in some way.
My lawyer's got mine expunged after I overturned the marijuana law.
Yes, John Sinclair, a real criminal, continues to be burdened by this, right? So the ability to do things like, and it's so much more than, hey, I can't get a job, I can't get housing, I can't go to freaking school. If you have a criminal record, it is a barrier to getting FAFSA. It's also a barrier to getting grants that you have to pay back, student loans at 6%. I can't believe it. It's also an issue for people who are trying to buy houses, which is something I didn't know until my clients are like, yeah, dude, I can't rent, I can't buy. I keep getting denied from lenders because I grew pot in my dad's basement in 96. It's never... Also, people with criminal records aren't criminals. I've yet to see somebody come in and be these hardcore criminals that people are warning them about, right? So I am from Southwest Michigan, right next to us is Cass County. The prosecutor, Victor Fritz, is a piece of shit. I mean, how else could you say it?
wow.
He is a lot of things. But he did a press release about 3 weeks ago about how he is going to refuse every single marijuana expungement that comes his way because the idea that people we're just putting criminals back on the streets, and then people are going to rent the people who once used marijuana and have no idea about it, and it's a danger to Cass County. Now, Cass County is the largest producer of methamphetamine here in the state of Michigan, and that I don't know how real that is, because that is something that comes from, again, Officer Fritz and his bullshit that he makes up. But the idea that the real concern, and I think that when we're talking about Cass County, it's important to highlight things like Rainbow Farm, right? So, like, I know that all of us know what went on there, but some people don't. A literal massacre of two very prominent Michigan activists has never healed. We've never healed from that. The community has never healed. The prosecutor's office has never healed. It has never gotten.
They never said they were sorry. They never said they were wrong.
They're not sorry, right? So the thing about apologizing is that you have to have some sort of, you have to feel that you're wrong in some way, or be pressured to feel that they're wrong, right? But Cass County is also backed by a variety of conservative and uninformed voters who consistently feel the same way, right? So this idea that we have, at least when I go to these more liberal areas, which is if people knew what was going on, they would vote differently. And it's not true. There's places in rural Michigan where it is a literal hell for people like us, people that are using, consuming, and maybe distributing marijuana amongst themselves or amongst their friends. And I think that obviously Cass County would be something like that, but we also have places places where you wouldn't think, like Kalamazoo is unusually difficult to get through in terms of expungement and get people in court and get it approved. And these are places where they're extremely liberal. And you know, I'm always west side, best side. We got the sunsets. We got everything we need over here. But it really is tragic and terrible, right? The idea that cannabis is safe and that we should all be able to use it isn't something that I see every day here in Cass County, here in Berrien County. And also, you know, in counties where our friends have been rated historically, when we're talking about caregivers, I do get off topic a little bit, but we're talking about MCMA, and this isn't the first time, right? So when we first passed the dispensary bill, and do you guys remember that really shitty, terrible rally that they did, North did at the Capitol? It was like, patients deserve tested medication. There was all of 6 people there.
Green Peak on the steps of the Capitol. Yes, right.
It was terrible, right? And that was another. We were having this conversation about caregivers and the good that they do and where are they at, right? And I went to the rally just recently, and I had saw like Uncle Pete there and Gersh there, and Bob Johnson, who is from the UP. He had just passed away about a week and a half ago. And we're talking about, or we're thinking about this idea of who built this industry, who is really making, who's doing self-taxation, right? Self-taxation in terms of who is giving us in the community, who's giving back to the community, and X, Y, and Z. And I don't see a lot of self-taxation anymore here in, oh God, is he dishing out the cash from me? Is this a tip? Okay. I'm here for it, John. Thank you.
That laugh tells me no, Josie, but yes.
Hey, you know, I wouldn't. This God-given right to gift marijuana or whatever he wants to.
Yeah.
So we did an episode on Rainbow Farms that gives a lot of the background, the basic history of a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. It's worth checking out for those that might want to reference. I think Amy went to go find a better connection. And
She was in the car.
There she is.
Now she's in a home.
Oh, yay!
Hey. And sorry about the way I looked today. I was cleaning all day. I wasn't prepared.
We think you're fabulous.
Yep, you're going to whiteboard this whole experience. That's cool.
But you were also at Cannajam.
Yes.
And with More Than Hope, or working on behalf of your organization, getting some more education to people and that type of thing. But and I know that you've had some ongoing work with the with the opposition to the bills and some of your post testimony and discussions with the committee member and things like that too. I like to talk about, but anything about Cannajam?
It was awesome. Like, in the evening, there was a ton of people there. The light show was
Oh,
amazing.
wait, there were?
It was a blast.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved it.
Oh, great. Oh, terrific.
Yes.
A couple of thousands for the attendance, John. It was really, really good.
Oh, terrific.
Come here.
They didn't lose money. They were afraid of losing money on the first one. No,
Well,
Did
sound
you
like
guys
it.
see Amy's goddamn speech at the Capitol? And her daughter's in the crowd and she screams, "That's my mom!" I was like, holy shit, I cried. Crying. Mike Toohey was crying. We're like, God damn it, Amy. I'm so excited, and I'm really excited about what Amy's doing at More Than Hope, right? So, Amy called me like 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, and was like, hey, I want to take over doing doctor certifications for minors. And this is something Sons and Daughters of United has done, I don't know, probably since 2013.
yes, you cried.
Is that okay with you? Please do everything you want to do and let me help you do it, right? There's no one better in terms of women working in pediatric medicine for cannabis than Amy Carter, right? I'm a big fan of Amy Carter's. I'm a huge fan of Jen Powers and the work that they're doing. But let's be real, there is no way that we would be anywhere near as far as we are if we weren't talking about, especially when oils were made illegal and we're like, hey, kids can't smoke pot. What do you want them to do? Roll up an eighth? Okay. Amy's the shit. I really can't believe all the work that she's done. And I was the first minor patient here in Michigan, right? So I understand the navigating. When we legalized marijuana, my mom was getting brickweed smuggled in from gas cans from Mexico. And she smoked that for at least 30 years and didn't die. So I'm pretty sure I can smoke some tainted weed from some caregivers' gardens if they exist, right?
No one has ever died from marijuana.
That's true. No one's ever died from marijuana. Well, it looks like we lost Josey. Amy Carter with More Than Hope is also the inspiration for something called Jaden's Law here in Michigan. It's a proposal before the legislature right now. First, Jaden has benefited from the use of cannabis medicines throughout his for several years now. And the problem is that Amy's not able to deliver that medicine to him on school grounds, which makes it very difficult to be consistent with his medication dosage as well as with his school career. Amy, I was just explaining a little bit about the justification for Jaden's Law.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What were we talking about? Just like what it is, basically?
Yeah, sure. Why it was important for us to do and what the bill number is and things like that.
Okay, it is bill number bill 469. I don't remember. Can't make it there. Anyways, it is a House bill that would allow access to medical marijuana.
Amy, can you move closer to your microphone, please, because we're having some difficulty.
Yeah. Let me
sounds better,
try to turn that up. Okay, can you hear me now?
That's
Yeah.
great right there.
Better.
Okay. So basically, it is to allow access to children when they're at school and they have a medical marijuana card to CBD and THC products that are non-smokable. And it would be administered just like a pharmaceutical. There are, I think, 7 other states right now that have some type of legislation in place to allow access. We are working with Maureen in Illinois. She did Ashley's Law, and they got it passed there a few years ago. So it isn't right now. It's sitting in the education committee, and we haven't really had any traction. But hopefully soon. I have reached out several times, so we're currently working on that. But right now, I have to walk 1,000 foot. I have to park 1,000 foot away from the school and walk in, sign him out of class, walk him back to the car, and give him a capsule, and then I can drive him back in the parking lot. So a lot of parents, there's 292 minor patients in the state of Michigan, and not everybody has the availability to drive to their kids' school every day. And, you know, with seizure patients and something that is, you know, they need it immediately, you know, it doesn't make sense to make them go 1,000 foot away from the school if they need their medicine. So we're currently working on that. And 4796 and 4797, I think, are the House bills.
And I believe Josey had some mad praise for your testimony at the House of Representatives the other day in regards to HB 5300 and such.
I am just in love with Amy Carter. I just want to say it like 100 times in case she bounces off again and I can't tell her. It was amazing. So this idea that I struggle with a lot, like this idea of not wanting to be treated differently, but also understanding that I am different, right? So do I want to leave as a minor? I got my med card when I was 14. So when we're talking about minors getting cards, we're not talking about 14-year-olds getting a license to smoke marijuana and smoking pot all day. But that's, I mean, call the kettle black, right? The idea of kids using marijuana in school always sounds super controversial. But what Amy brings up is so good because it's 200 freaking kids. Like, I'm not asking for everybody in the world to be able to take a capsule at school. Also, there's so many barriers to becoming a minor patient here in the state of Michigan. It is so incredibly difficult to do, right?
You have to have two doctors.
And it's a difficult regimen to break, in my understanding, for the most part. So I'm different from a lot of these. Most minor patients aren't chronic pain patients. Me being a chronic pain patient is a lot more controversial. And this, again, was before Gupta came out and was like, hey, here's video evidence that kids can use marijuana and stop having seizures, right? Like, that changed everything. That changed everything for everywhere across the United States.
That's big.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta on weeds with CNN. Go ahead, Joseph.
Tell me what happens when Jaden doesn't use marijuana. Like, is he on a consistent regimen where he uses it consistently at the same time or the same amount every day?
Yeah, he's supposed to. We have days because he is almost 15 now. So we have days where he's just being a defiant teenager and he's like, I'm not taking my medicine today.
A 15-year-old argue against using pot. It's an unusual scenario. But
Can't relate, but okay.
Much larger than Amy, too. Jaden is very much larger than Amy.
Yes. He is almost 5'8", and he's 185 pounds now.
Wow.
So, yeah, he's a big kid. And I do see, an increase in anxiety, an increase in his OCD, an increase in his behaviors or his moods if he does not take it. When he does take it, he's a completely different kid. And he'll even say, man, I should have taken that, after the fact, because he'll be so calm after. And he'd be like, yeah, you're right, Mom. I need to take it all the time. I'm like, yeah, I know.
He recognizes.
Yes, he does. Definitely. Yeah, so it definitely has helped him. I actually had a school meeting today, and he is doing so great. And he was at a second, third grade level. He's in 8th grade. He has been going through some testing, and he tested out at a 5th and 6th grade level. So he jumped up a lot of grades. His IQ has improved. His cognitive impairment has diminished. And it is 100% a result of cannabis. We've watched it progress over the last 3.5 years, and it's amazing.
And that's a kind of a story, that's the type of a situation where a caregiver comes in handy, where you need a lot of something very consistently in a particular way in order to get a cost-effective way of getting that specific thing. The caregiver, and that was part of your testimony. And I know that you followed up a little bit too with one of the committee members and someone who was in support. I don't know where he stands now, but I know that he's reached out to a couple other people also. And is there anything about those conversations and who you're having it with? You could talk about a little bit.
The conversation, it started out with Representative DeMuth. And he was at the hearing, and he was very negative. He then got on his Facebook and made a post, and it really offended me. So I replied to it, and we got into a debate on Facebook, and it actually went really well. He commented back and said, Amy, you've made a lot of really good points. And as a result, I've asked legislation to slow down on these bills. So he asked if I would call his office and have a meeting with him. I did yesterday, and it was about a 40-minute meeting, and it went very well. He didn't, a lot of the committee members, they don't know the difference between recreational and medical. And he thought they were the same.
What?
And so I made a lot of good points on that aspect of it, because, you know, he was saying, like, calling it drugs and saying, kind of like acting like caregivers are criminals. And I'm like, whoa, you
That's
know,
the narrative up in Lansing. So
yeah, we're talking about a herb. Really, it's classified as a herb, and that's my son's medicine.
We legalized
292
it.
minor patients. Every time you say it, you're offending their families.
It's legal. We legalized it. We
It's
voted
not a
for
drug
it.
anymore.
Yeah,
Right on, John.
exactly. And so I said, you know, I made a lot of different bullet points that I actually put together in a 4-page document, and he is going to review it and share it with the other committee members. So there was several different bullet points, and I have some of them here. And I told him, I said, my observation of all of this is that they did not consider the patients and caregivers when they were drafting these bills. And for 13 years, these caregivers have had 5 patients. And how can they tell 4 of them, sorry, I can't help you anymore?
It's a beautiful system.
Like, and
Beautiful system.
I told him that it's corporate greed. I said, you know, what bothers me too is, you know, I'm all about the recreational market. So, like, I was trying to be careful. I'm not saying anything negative about the, you know, recreational, but I was like, here they're trying to limit medical, but anybody can grow 12 plants over the age of 21. How is that okay? So, you know, the MCMA is going to come after the 300,000 patients, but yet the 9 million people that live in Michigan can grow their own 12 plants. So how is that okay? And then he came to the conclusion that one, he feels like they didn't consider the patients. He does feel that way. They didn't consider it. And I lost my train of thought with that one. Oh, I brought up the guy in Lapeer. The guy in Lapeer, he testified that, oh, we have all these grow shops and vicious dogs and bringing crime to the
that
area.
was a local official from Lapeer that was in support of these.
Yes.
Yes.
And he says, you drive around and you see these grow places going in everywhere. Okay, well, can you tell me if it was hemp or was it a recreational grow? Because the majority of the caregivers, you don't see their grow. And we've been doing this, again, since 2008. So if he's seeing an increase of that, he is looking at either hemp or recreational. And he was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And then he said, well, yeah, but we had a lot of people we thought were taking advantage of the medical system and just getting their card so that they could, you know, and I was like, there's not a need. Since 2018, really only the patients that need to be patients, a lot, you know, people that were possibly taking advantage of the system are now just growing it themselves or going to the dispensary for adult use.
Ooh,
And he was like, yeah, you're right.
Nice.
Oh my God, that is the best point. Like, why would everybody that's getting med cards needs medicine, right?
Yep. There's no cheats in the system. I doubt that, you know, we can say anyone was cheating before because all cannabis use is medical, you know, whether you're carded or not. But yeah, you're right. You have to assume the system's pure now because patients and average adults both have the same cultivation privileges.
Yep.
You can add in there for that gentleman.
Black market.
The gentleman from Lapeer also mentioned that there were multiple caregivers in like one home or in, you know, multiple caregivers in a household, which, you know, if there are, that's not part of the law, and that requires law enforcement to come in and break that up. So, you know, the system as is fine.
And we did touch base on that, and I said, you know, there are townships that are having these meetings and they're putting in ordinances. I've been to quite a few of them they're already handling that, and it's each specific area, in Gaylord, they might have different needs than Royal Oak. So that's why it's important, when they are, putting in these ordinances that we're present, and just like they did in Flushing, we work it out together. And so he, recognized that as well. The other thing I pointed out is that with my son's medicine, I kind of explained they don't have any education at all on this. And so he's like, please educate me. I explained that it is impossible for dispensaries to grow in bulk and provide the type of medicines that caregivers are providing. I explained that if we had a grandma that had seizures, needed to increase her appetite, but also had insomnia, okay, so we would need a high CBD, low THC during the day, something that would stimulate her appetite, and then in the evening, like a lanolin terpene, which would calm her. And then what method of use is grandma going to use? And there's several different ways. In order, I explained to him, there's several different terpenes. There's thousands of different strains. So when they find a strain that's good for them, they can have their caregiver grow that specific strain. And it's unlikely that, you'd be able to walk into a dispensary and just have that available. And if they're growing in bulk, the quality is not going to be there. And it will affect the medical patient. They've been doing this for 13 years. And it's unethical. It is wrong.
Amen.
So I want to qualify what Jim said for a second, because a couple people are kind of taking it literally when he said that several people would operate under the same roof or whatever. He was implying, I think, like just creating a lot of cannabis and selling it at large, and not necessarily each of those grows being dedicated to the patients in which they are connected, which does happen sometimes when somebody has enough resources and space. And there's a couple different caregivers or multiple caregivers that can be in that area, each with their own, garden to take care of their patients. That does happen sometimes. But I'm assuming, I don't want to speak for you, Jim, but you meant like the idea of people exceeding the limits.
Exactly. Exceeding the limits and just taking advantage of it and growing as many plants as they can.
Yes.
With their caregiver cards.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm with you, John. Totally.
So, this is something that's always weird. Down here, they're always complaining that they're gutting these houses and then putting grows in them, and people are like coming in from Chicago. Oh, if you don't know, everybody in Southwest Michigan hates everybody in Illinois because they flood our beaches, even though they have their own fucking beaches. So it's already a thing, right? But people from other states come over here, get residency, buy these houses, and don't live there, right? This is an issue for caregivers as a whole. This is something that I consistently am waiting for them to bring up, and nobody is really touched on. So I'm thankful about that. But that's something that's coming up at every single board meeting in New Buffalo. It's coming up, and these are like the beginning of these caregiver bans, right? That we see in or these, what I consider to be caregiver bans, where they make these bogus ordinances that nobody can adhere to, and then everyone's a criminal now. So, Amy, how much did you know about growing marijuana before the state said you had to grow marijuana?
Not much at all, really.
So that was like the thing for my mom, right? It was like 2009. The law had just passed. We had no fucking idea what was going to happen. My doctor called like every day to be like, when are the forms going to be available? When are the forms going to be available? We got filed April 2009, right? I never received my minor card until like 3 months after my next renewal, right? But that was the thing. Here is my mother, who is disabled, who has been using marijuana since the 90s, but up until literally 3 months prior was a criminal. But not the type of criminal that grows marijuana, right? So like, she's never grown marijuana. She doesn't know anyone who grows marijuana. What does she do other than drive to a Compassion Club in Ann Arbor, 3.5 hours away from our house, to see who else doesn't know how to grow marijuana, right? And so what we kept meeting was these caregivers all around who did know how to grow marijuana. And it was marijuana we had never seen before, right? Like really unbelievable clean weed. And they're clearly doing it before they were able to. I mean, that's the math doesn't work out in that way. But my mom traveled because she didn't know how to grow weed, right? So she traveled to Flint, she traveled to Taylor, she traveled to Grand Rapids, to Muskegon. She went to all these Compassion Club meetings, and they eventually opened one in my town in Southwest Michigan. She drove all over the state, meeting caregivers and people, learning how to grow marijuana or how to procure marijuana or how can I get quality marijuana that my kid doesn't have to smoke, because that's the second part. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure Amy's not a chemist. Neither is my mom. Like, we have no fucking idea how to make, tinctures or oils or edibles. And at the time, there wasn't a resource for that. And so I don't think that it's really that much easier to access now, right? The Michigan Medical Marijuana Association was like the thing for us. Like, we would log on there and somebody would be like, here's how you make RSO. And we're like, okay, bet. Gersh Avery saved my life every day. I'll tell anybody.
So the most discussion would take place before Facebook or other platforms.
Oh yeah, you had to have a Gmail account to do it.
Web-based chat room. Yes.
It was crazy. So my mom, Gersh Avery, taught my mom how to make cannabis oil, right? 100%.
Gersh.
The only thing, right? So my mom.
Hey, positive vibes to Gersh, by the way.
He's the shit in my fucking life, dude. I can say this about so many people that he's done that for.
Yeah.
He's a giant.
He was at the rally, actually. That was cool.
Oh man, I wish I would have seen him.
Yeah, and but he's back in, I believe.
Back in the hospital, you said?
Yes.
Aw.
I mean, that should be confirmed, but I believe that's the case. You know what? We do have our next guest here. I want everybody to stay. But Amy, I just want to know if there's any, and I appreciate that story, as does Susan, Josey. But Amy, is there any? How would you end with your exchange with the representative on the committee, who was definitely going to be in support of these? Do you think he's now not in support, or just
he was not in support, or no, he was in support of these passing, of going through. And I feel that I opened his eyes. And like I said, we talked for about 40 minutes. He did have a note taker on the line with us taking notes. And he said he was going to review everything. He's going to be back in contact with me. He asked if he could call if he had any questions. I asked if I could please come down and meet with the committee members. He said that he wanted to forward the information I sent him. I did send the news clip when Jay and I were on the news. And then I also sent a video that I took of Jaden being violent and aggressive. And then after medical marijuana, where Jaden talks. And so I'm really excited about that, but I'm hoping that I can get some meetings and I can take Jaden down there and kind of go over those bullet points I put together with them. And that's really about it. I haven't heard anything back. I did send the emails out today. So just kind of waiting, and I'll probably follow up, in the next few days.
Right on. That's very cool. Good work. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we are now joined by a guy who also attended Cannajam. He's also one of our sponsors here in terms of he and Krista and family have Real Leaf Solutions, cultivator from Kalkaska, and they're great products all over the place, including in the botanical company. Also the premier sponsor, along with Grow Green Michigan and Comorn Law and stuff, for the Cannajam event that we just had. Also, the Echoes of Pink Floyd bass player and driver. Also, the Laser Light Show producer. And he also happens to be called Tom Beller.
I think you got my whole resume there.
Well, thanks, man. And everybody just had a blast, and obviously the band and the show and the lights, and I mean, what a great night, great weather, everything.
Jim Salam showing us a Real Leaf Solution hat he's wearing right now. I'm actually
that's old school.
Sporting a Real Leaf Solutions grinder right now too. So I mean,
that's good work.
Really well established. Tom, great job with that, but also great job just in general. I mean, Kalkaska is a wonderful place to be. You're a trendsetter in the industry and still managed to respect your caregiver roots. So thanks to you from us.
Yeah, it still blows my mind. I pinch myself every day that we get to do this, but unfortunately so many people don't. And there are people out there wanting to take away the right for people to grow their own medicine and help their neighbors, help their families and their loved ones. So we are caregiver rooted, and we still consider ourselves caregivers. We give care to everyone. If you seek us out, you can have the care that we provide. But really Solutions does not support any changes to any of the existing laws the way they stand, especially the MMMA. That is sacred. It's original. It's what really gives everyone the right to for freedom. But if we start actually going backwards and putting people back into prison for these types of things, or even if they want to just slap people on the hands or whatever, instead of giving a true path to whatever they may want to see happen, whether it's testing or things of that nature, it's really, I believe it's up to the state to kind of guide that in a way and make that more available, because I deal with it every day as a licensed facility. We have a difficult time sometimes getting things through testing, and metric crashes on us all the time. I can't imagine if we tried to throw, how many people on, how many caregivers do we have that are registered currently?
30,000.
Yeah, give me a break. How many licensed facilities are there? I mean, I should know these numbers, but the limited hard drive space.
No, but you're talking about probably including all 5 license types that are on metric, maybe 700 right now.
And that's crashing metric. So let's add those people to. So really, I believe it should be on, the government to provide the infrastructure then if they want to see change. And if you really want to see a change to the MMMA, you need to put it back up to a vote to the people of Michigan to see if that's something that they would like to do. And surprise, surprise, I would put, and I'm not a gambling man, but I seriously would put money on the fact that people would not want that to change. It's a constitutional amendment. It is right. It is, it's going in the wrong direction. So.
Right.
The fact of the matter is you've got 30,000 caregivers roughly in Michigan servicing 72,000 patients. If this proposal goes through and those 30,000 caregivers are only allowed to service one patient, it's literally 42,000 people, 42,000 of the state's most ill, injured, and infirm immediately bounced from their care system and left to hope that they can find a substitute somewhere else. And they propose to do this not after a reasonable amount of time to give you a chance to prepare for it. They want it in March of 2022, 5 months away. That's heartless.
Yeah. Not surprising, but correct.
And if they were challenged, there's no way they could issue 40,000 new caregivers if those patients went looking. So they don't understand the numbers. They don't understand the concept. And
they don't care.
Well, that's
exactly, John. They don't
care about us.
They don't care.
And as Amy pointed out, they're not educated enough to know the difference.
They're stupid.
They don't care enough to see the consequences of
when you look at the marijuana laws, anybody who subscribes to this is an ignoramus. There was a narcotic in the state of Michigan when I started fighting against these laws. Any fool can see it's not a narcotic. It doesn't take anybody with any education at all. It's not a narcotic. Duh! And yet this was the law of the land, and thousands of people were in prison for this. When I turned over the law in 1972, 143 people were released right there. I want to say hi to them when they came.
Right. John Sinclair was not unique in being sentenced to prison for an outrageous amount of time. That was the norm back then.
That was the law. 10 years for possession, 20-year mandatory minimum for sales or distribution. Mandatory minimum, nothing less than 20. I was charged with giving 2 joints to a person.
Oh, we congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.
Which is now completely legal in the state of Michigan, I might add, to give marijuana away.
Yep.
That should be called the John Sinclair clause.
The one disgusting constant over the entire war of the drugs period is the complete disinterest in government in learning about cannabis and our people and what's best for us. That's the one constant. Doesn't matter what era you look at, 80s, 70s, 90s, what they're doing now. They just have a disinterest in who we are and what we do.
Well, they got their bullshit. You know, they got their bullshit that's been carefully assembled, piles of it, and they're throwing it at us.
Well, and the sad part is, I thought it was just and I hate to say this with my dear friend in the call, I thought it was just an issue of a couple generations more to die off, and then we'd be rid of this problem. But some of these young people coming up are in this system and in this industry are buying into some of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
And that's what's even scarier is that.
Well, that's because ignorance is the claim of the realm.
Wait, are you saying entry level or like new people, young kids are talking in favor of the MCMA?
I believe that there are people that work in the industry that think that what they're doing is right and that testing is important. Machine testing is important. Sorry. And they're not smart enough to educate themselves on cannabis in general, so they couldn't be a good salesperson to begin with. I mean, this is modern stuff. We're not talking about you're kind of young, but what we used to go through where you had your option between bag A and bag B and you stuck your nose in it, you broke a butt open, and this is a whole different world now.
Right. There's lots of putting your nose in shit now.
Well, the one thing that we have seen, regardless of industry, is that oftentimes bosses tell workers that what's good for me, the boss, is good for you, the worker, and put aside your personal feelings and do what's best for the corporate entity so you continue to keep a paycheck. So people who used to be caregivers may now sponsor or support anti-caregiver regulations because they are now employed by the regulated industry.
So on the other side.
Yep, and that's not unusual. It's not unique to this particular industry. It's just human nature. So try to judge less harshly people that are doing that particular thing, because remember, sooner or later, that industry is going to bounce them, and they're going to be right back where we are, and they're going to have our attitude again.
What we need to know, though, is it's really not about judging those people. It's about identifying those people and re-educating them. Because these people these youngsters are our hope and our future. And if they're not given the right education at the beginning, then just like the old people, we need to re-educate them.
I'd really like to give Tom some time because this is his special segment, and we've been talking about everything except for Real Leaf Solutions. Plus, I honestly think Real Leaf, when you look at a corporate entity, they're an example of someone who has a level of responsibility I hope others aspire to. Real Leaf is part of the Redemption Foundation family. You've sponsored, numerous events around the state, including Cannajam. Just really been active, Tom. You and Krista and your entire organization. Really happy with that. What can you tell us about some of your activities here in the state that might be not very well known by our audience?
We're currently working with the MICIA to build a park, a handicap accessible park in Kalkaska. That's desperately needed, and a skate park, Fresh Coast, 42 Degrees. The processor that we work with, they are also very active in getting the skate park open. And, these just locally are things that we try to do to gain awareness, and it's a way to give back. People talk about corporate cannabis, and if we are an S corporation, that's how we file. And that's kind of a crushing thing for me in a way, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. But there is a way to be responsible and be human about how you conduct business. It's not about the bottom line all the time. And that's how we operate. We care about our employees. We provide full health benefits, medical, dental, and we're always trying to push the envelope to see what we can offer as a company, that just to normalize this whole thing. You know, we'd like to offer 401k packages to our employees and all these things that, because the federal regulations and the scheduling of cannabis prevents us from doing so. So we are very active in pushing those boundaries and utilizing both our own counsel, our legal counsel, and CPAs, and use that. And most of them are active with the MRA and trying to educate them on what we're experiencing and the limitations that we have. And it's like very expensive to run and pay taxes as a cannabis industry because of the scheduling. All around, the scheduling of cannabis is just really fucking stupid, and it needs to end so we can conduct business normally. And we will continue to do the right thing, because as soon as we stop doing the right thing and this stops being fun to me anymore, I'm done. The whole point of this is weed is fun, and it's a way that it changes people's lives and it brings people together. And if it isn't doing those things, then it's not functioning properly, and we don't want any part of it. And we have to fight to make sure that companies don't lose sight of doing what's right. I mean, it's a sacred plant, and we're very fortunate to be in a position that we can offer our products in many markets and, make money, and then we can give as much of it back as we possibly can and have fun events like Cannajam, but also support social justice programs and raising awareness and supporting our friends and associates with it.
By the way, Real League has donated to Glenn.
Great Lakes Expungement Network.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tom, how large is your cultivation operation there? What kind of licensure do you have, and how many stores are you in?
I believe we are in between 20 and 25 stores at any time. We're a 300 light flowering operation. We have 6 flowering rooms. We run everything through HPS and CMHs. We run all of our LEDs and veg. We're still just a single canopy, one room to cultivator kind of an operation. We exclusively work with 42 degrees and fresh coast extracts. We send our fresh frozen and our trim to be made into products, and that usually finds its way onto the top shelves of the concentrate section of stores too that we're in, which we're really proud, and we carry a lot of pride. All of our cultivators, everyone, our trimmers, everyone has just such a high level of pride in their work because of what we do and the atmosphere and the culture that we're building as a company. And that's the only way you can get a quality product through, is if you put love into it, you get love out of it. And that's how it works.
Communities are like that too, and you certainly put some love into the Kalkaska community. That's a real hub in northern Michigan, for most people don't know, in what we normally would have thought of as rather a rural type of an environment. Yet it's really embraced cannabis, and Real Leaf has been one of those companies that's been an industry leader up there, both in professionalism as well as in employment. Can you talk about how great it is to work in Kalkaska and what it was like to get the community to sign on to this program?
Yeah, Kalkaska, we started discussing this whole the MMFLA in 2016. Right after that was voted in. Ryan Basor was very helpful in helping us find Kalkaska, and he brought us into Kalkaska as because they were looking for what they were saying as good players or people they could trust. They didn't want, since they were going to be some of the first people, and that was kind of an interesting conversation. I didn't know exactly what they were going to say because, I know, look like a hippie and, act like one, if it smells like one and, it is one, but they did embrace us. And we were the first license in Kalkaska. We're the first licensed grow north of Lansing and Flint under the medical program, MMFLA. And we worked closely with the local sheriff's department, the fire department, and then when the state started getting involved during the application process, we opened our doors at our caregiver operation to show everyone what it looks like. Come on in. It doesn't bite. It's a plant. It's indoor agriculture, and then started educating the people that would essentially be regulating us because they're all ex-law enforcement.
Right.
So they came straight from, and the jokes at the beginning, which were not fucking funny, were usually like, oh, if this were last year or 2 years ago, I'd be putting you behind bars. I'm like, dude, that's not funny. People
Get out. Get out right now.
We'll apologize to those people you put behind bars for 2 years.
Get out.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah, that's not serving. That's not that. So, but bucking those stereotypes and all of the things, it can be frustrating work sometimes. You have to kind of, bite your tongue. Can't always say what you want to say. So we really appreciate the true patriots like you guys and everyone here being able to say some of the things that I can't say sometimes because not that I'm yellow, but or save face or anything, but sometimes you just have to take, we're kind of taking one for the team and showing everyone around. So we've been very proactive, and we were working with the state early on while they were still kind of building the plane while we're flying it, and still kind of are for this whole process, and learned a lot. And we worked together for the most part to build for an example, there would be, say, you have to submit X paperwork, and they'd be like, well, who do I send it to? Well, we haven't hired that person yet. Like, well, just stuff like that. That's exactly what we ran into day after day, and it was extremely frustrating. But they also were launching technically what they call a new industry, but it's it's probably the oldest industries other than prostitution,
Right.
around, but they're new. So we have to educate them. Like you were saying, you have to educate people. And then we continue to take that stand, and we will continue to do that. As a matter of fact, I was asked to apply for the Kalkaska Downtown Development Authority, and I was just, I'll be sworn in tomorrow.
Awesome.
And then full tie-dye. And they accepted me anyway. So
That's great.
they wanted a cannabis professional in there. So I looked around and they were talking to me. So,
Well, Tom, you're a great representative for the community. Plus, when I say the community, I mean all of us, for the cannabis industry and the cannabis consumer world that we are. You walked our lives, you walked our path for a long time before you got to where you're at. So that's the best kind of spokesman we could hope for.
yeah, you can't let these guys come in, the Johnny-come-latelys, and try and take money out of an industry that people have sacrificed their lives, their families, and everything in order to fight for a very simple right, which is the consumption of a plant, to utilize in any way you feel fit. So,
Speaking of consumption, isn't there going to be a lounge of some sort up there in Kalkaska too?
Yep, the Kalkushka Lounge is underway, and we're hoping to open December, hopefully by the holidays, and there will be much rejoicing. We hope everyone here will be able to come, and anybody watching will come and visit us as soon as it opens.
What do you count?
Yeah.
What do you have to pay for that?
You don't have to pay anything, sir. There may be. We're still trying to figure out how.
No, I mean
the
to
idea
the
isn't
state.
to really make money off of the lounge.
To the state. What do you have to pay to the state?
Oh, the state licensing fee?
Yeah.
My wife and Christo, do you know what that fee is? I imagine it's a $6,000 application, flat fee, and then I'd have to look that up. I couldn't tell you. That's actually, I'm not doing those types of things anymore. But I could find out for everyone. Maybe somebody could pop something up on the down below thing and let everyone know. It's definitely it's not a revenue generating thing. It's a place we'd like to allow people to rent it out.
In the state. The state charges a lot of money for you to be able to
tens of thousands of dollars easily.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, our first cultivation license was $66,000.
See what I mean?
Medical, and for a while we had no way to even sell product or even have guidance from the state on what to do. So, you pay money for something you can't use.
You up.
Because, like you said, aptly,
every morning.
They were building the plane while they were flying it. In the early days, there was a rush to get the industry off the ground. And, of course, we can understand why that would be.
We built the plane.
We did. We built a plane. They chose to switch from a good plane to a shit plane in midair. I don't know why.
No one gave us $60,000 to build the plane. We built the plane out of the goodness of our heart.
Yep. And of course, there were 500 unlicensed dispensaries in the state of Michigan prior to the 2016 when they passed the MMFLA. We trained the cannabis industry, the cannabis consumer world here in Michigan to use retail locations. I cannot tell you how difficult it was. Jamie can, Jim can. I can tell you how difficult it was to get people to come into our shops in 2009 and 2010 when the cops were patrolling and writing down people's license plate numbers. We burned those barriers and we got people to use a system, and now the system seems to be spinning out of our hands.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's the regulatory plan, I guess, is what I was referring to, not necessarily the cannabis industry plan.
Right.
That's been sailing for a very long time.
Various planes have been
The
built.
rich
while in
people
flight.
with the big companies are bad enough, but your first enemy is the state.
Again,
If the
they've
state
never
were
tried.
blocking people from opening a dispensary and circulating weed on a reasonable cost basis, the big companies wouldn't have a chance.
Yeah, the big companies need the
If they
government.
weren't punishing us from the beginning and making it impossible to do what we do, they wouldn't have a chance.
So, Tom, can you tell us about the Safe Banking Act? And I think that you were kind of touching on it a little bit earlier in the regulations that go with that.
Well, with safe banking, I was referring more to the MORE Act, which would deschedule cannabis, but the Safe Banking Act would allow states that have either medical or recreational programs to allow more banks to opt into. I'm probably the worst person to ask some of these questions, but that's my understanding, is that it would allow us more access to banking, which is a very expensive and difficult thing. At first, it was all in cash, and then it became a safety issue, of course. And, luckily for us, we do have Dart Bank. We love Dart Bank. They've treated us really well. They haven't excessively, taken advantage of anything. And they are starting to allow loans to be made, which is excellent. But what safe banking will allow is for access to standardized loans, like standard loans, like any other business. Then we can
Like any other business.
Any legitimate business can access capital. Yeah. And we can't access capital like most companies can. And if we do, they're at these ridiculous rates that are then balloon. And that's kind of where these MCMA guys have gotten themselves into trouble.
Yep.
Is by borrowing it's the whole MedMan thing, that the ego, the greed, all of the shit that comes along with that.
And the unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
So what are some things that you can't deduct because you're a cannabis business? So I know that as a real business, as a real industry or an industry outside of
federally
recognized industry. Thank you for that. You can deduct things like training hours or giving your employees insurance. Talk about that.
Yeah. So we're a cultivation facility, first and foremost. As far as the grow goes, we can only, what we've been told is we can only deduct plant touching expenses. So anyone that touches a cultivator, cultivation equipment, and fertilizer. But once the plant is chopped, it's not really considered that anymore. And we still have many, packaging can come out too. But anyone that is like involved with administrative office, technically it would be janitorial, maintenance, essentially what does it come to? My wife, luckily Krista's here because she can kind of feed me some real information because she's the one that deals with that stuff.
Get on camera, Krista. Come on.
She's shy. She's like, I didn't do my hair. Come on.
Neither did I.
Yeah, Mommy Bear's gonna really help to entice her to come on.
Oh, we're just gonna come on, make me look good.
Too late for that.
Come on, everybody.
Too late for that.
Here we are. Yay!
So we're talking about 280E.
280E, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so basically all of our expenses related to the operating of our business that doesn't directly touch the plant, right? Like our office space is a percentage, and then that percentage comes off the electric bill, and that part of the electric bill is not deductible. And by deductible, like I'm just saying, like it doesn't count as an expense against our income. It's not like we're getting some kind of special tax break deduction. It's just
opposite.
You know, it's a normal business.
Opposite, right.
So effectively, like we're paying about 70% in taxes. So I think that's
that needs
probably going to be pretty standard.
Which the MORE Act would definitely take care of.
That's un-American.
Yeah,
And we're not getting any representation for it, right? That's
Right, yeah.
representation.
Taxation without representation. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
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 And a tax deduction without representation is just as bad.
And yes, it was somebody. Steve asked if it was Dart Bank. It is Dart Bank, DART.
Dart Bank's been great to work with.
They really have.
And of course, the 280E issue goes much further than just banking too. Insurance services are restricted. There are a lot of other federal, a lot of things that just a normal corporation does in the course of day that are compounded because of federal restrictions. Certain people say they can't work with our industry. Certain attorneys and CPAs.
Oh, we get that a lot. You can't use like headhunters or hiring services. You know, we'd like to provide an HSA for our employees and fund that HSA so they have zero medical expenses. We can't do that because that's IRS. You know, there's just a lot that we could sit here for hours and go on about all the things that we'd like to do, but we can't.
Yeah, I even asked the CPA if we could just have one plant that we put in the middle of a room and touched everything to it on camera, wrote it down, attached the receipt, and had the camera and the time stamped and everything, sent it to the CPA and say, look, everything's deductible. It touched that plant. And they didn't find it very funny or clever. And I mean,
I found it both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wiped this plant all over my BMW. I get
We have to start to wind down a little bit, and Ray, who performed there, and
Ray's the Ray.
Once Upon a Time was on the show.
Wakey, Ray.
What's up, fellas? Wake and bake.
For this one, huh?
I just came up in the basement for this, guys. So
you're here with Tom from Echoes of Pink Floyd and Real Leaf Solutions.
What a great time! That was such a
that was awesome, man. I know Ray.
That whole event was so much fun. I'm still smiling from it. You know, it just it was so cool to see so many friendly, familiar faces and family at this event. You know, and oh man, just like you know, hearing Johnny and you know, and Mr. Sinclair himself just tear it up on, you know, on the poetry tip. That was amazing. Yeah. You know,
Thank you.
The whole Pink Floyd tribute was awesome. Holy cow, that was dope with the laser shows. You know, I just had a great time all around. It was great getting really baked with a lot of awesome friends. You know, it's cool seeing Adam, totally baking down over there at his little fucking tent. That was awesome. Yeah, I still got some brain cells left from that event, and from what I have that recalls nothing but a good time.
All right. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. It's been a little while since you've been on this show. We've had our dick joke ratio has gone way down.
Way down.
No, it's not. Are you saying that there's just not enough dick jokes anymore around here since I, stopped hanging out?
I'm not implying much else.
It's sausage fest to me, man.
Yeah. Well, of course, Ray hasn't been on because he was touring with his band and opened for Judas Priest. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did band my band Rising Up Angry that I'm singing with in Florida. Did some shows, down there, and one of the cool gigs that we got to do was with Judas Priest, opening up for them in Orlando. And a couple of cool bands that were on the bill too, like Soulfly. Some of the guys from Sepultura were in that band that I remember from. Yeah, like I've known them guys for like 25, 30 years as well. So it was really cool to catch up with some old faces. And actually getting ready to be going back down to Florida for Halloween show that's going to be happening down in Jacksonville. So, doing that, been recording, working on the Rising Up Angry record, and also, doing stuff up here in Detroit as well, waiting to find out what's going to be going on with the Insane Clown Posse's latest projects and studio adventures.
How's the weed in Florida?
You know what? It's great. It's awesome. You want to know why?
You bring your own.
You bring it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's right.
Shout out to True Leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly,
Big shout outs to
all of the stores. Yeah.
Right.
Well, we know the Black Tuna's got his own line of cannabis
Yeah,
down
they
there,
hook
and we
him up.
certainly
That's
don't want to
gotta be-
disrespect
They don't
Rob
hook him up.
Heavy.
He goes in and buys it.
Well, I thought they
gotta
hooked
tell
him up
you.
with that whole licensing deal that's benefited him.
He talks. I watch his posts regularly. He goes in and purchases what he wants.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't have a licensing deal.
You can.
'Cause I'd never purchase a fucking thing from you ever if you were using my name.
Free cannabis for life is your license trigger, right?
It's
It's also
a
my
small
licensing
part-
trigger.
It's a
for anyone
small
that
part of
seems
the payment.
We got to wind down a little bit. Ray, anything else you want to wrap up with, man? Thanks for coming on.
Not much, man. Smoking some good trees.
There you go. That always works. Josey?
I got to say this, it was really interesting to be, flying down to Florida, and I got a couple of onions with me and thinking, well, hopefully no problem. And of course it wasn't. But you know what the problem was? More than 3.5 ounces of soap, shampoo.
Yeah, you got that long hair.
Liquid.
Yep, I got that long hair.
You had a good argument. Hey, Josey,
Oh,
anything point people to
Yeah, so
events?
please make Sons and Daughters United your fundraiser, your Facebook birthday fundraiser. You can do that. We get 100% of the donations. Not to point fingers, but Jamie didn't. Please, as holiday season comes along, it's a good idea to make Sons and Daughters United your charity on Amazon Smile. We get like a whopping 1.5% of that, but that really does add up. Also, speaking of holiday seasons, on Friday we drop our link for our 6th annual holiday grant. We go all out for the holiday season. If you know somebody who has a family member who is incarcerated or who has a disability directly in their household, we sponsor up to 15 families across the state of Michigan. Obviously more if we can find more funding for that. We can't exclusively, according to my attorney, because we're officially licensed to the IRS, do specifically cannabis users, but these are both spaces that cannabis users or people who consume marijuana exist in. Also, if you or your favorite dispensary already adopt families for Christmas, come to me and get a tax deduction for it. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All donations are tax deductible. So if you're like, Josey, I do this in my town every year anyways, that's fine. You can still continue to do that and publicize it how you want. But let's get some of your income down because just like what Tom and Krista were talking about, there is really a huge barrier. And that's why we see a lot of self-taxation. People going out of their way to give to charities when they don't really have to. And otherwise, thanks for having me on.
Right on, Josey. Hey, Tom?
Yeah.
Can you leave us with some parting words and information and point people to your...
Yeah, you can. We're about to launch our website, a new website, redesigned and branded and everything. Working on our branding, which is something I never thought we would be. Weed has never had to be branded before. If it's good, people want to buy it. So the whole branding thing and marketing was a second thought. Even having to name the thing seems silly to me, but here we are, and we're really happy with the way our marketing actually is. We're having a lot of fun with it. We're running a promotion now that we have golden tickets going out in the wild, and Billy Bonka and the Poompa Doompas will take you on a tour of our grow facility and put you up at the lovely Four Seasons in Kalkaska for a few nights. Go to the lounge. We'll get super baked and go back to the grow and do some silly things and check out how weed is done. And those golden tickets can be found in Real Leaf Products pre-rolls, pre-packaged dates at provisioning centers. The best way to find out where things are is usually through Instagram or our Facebook page. So yeah, we're really looking forward for that whole thing. I get to meet some people and take them around and do tours. We like to have a lot of fun with that because, like I said before, if you're not having fun with weed, you're in it for the wrong reason.
Right on. Thanks. And it was so awesome, man. Again,
well, thanks for having us, man. We can't wait to talk about the next one, and it was a wonderful experience all around. Super proud to be part of it. And I got to meet John Sinclair. That was fucking really cool, man. Thank you for taking some time for me.
John Sinclair. Thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for being a part of Cannajam. Thanks for I saw it was cool to watch that video again of you getting of us giving you that award from the interview, because it seemed like you really had a fun time with that.
It was fun. I got it right here.
Very cool.
It's right next to my favorite honor, which was Best Radio Personality, New Orleans, 2000.
Nice.
That is really cool.
5 years, I guess.
Nice. Anything else you want to leave us with, John?
No, I just I'm happy to be part of something like this. I love what you guys are doing, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Thanks, man. Hey, Jim.
Yeah. I got a few things. First, I have to say, John Sinclair, thank you so much. You are the inspiration for the Entheo Fest that occurred a few weeks ago. It's not a hash bash by any stretch of the imagination, but you were the inspiration to starting that free speech event in the Diag in Ann Arbor. So thank you. October 16th at Unity Vibrations in Ypsilanti at 4 p.m. Decriminalized Nature Michigan has a community event. October 24th at 1 p.m. Home of Medicine's welcoming Barking Dog Daryl Brown, the keynote speaker from Entheo Fest. He's going to be there at a meet and greet, discussing his artwork, and his art's on display at home right now. So you can check that out in downtown Ann Arbor.
Cool. Hey, Adam, anything to leave us with?
Not really. I'm, doing my daily thing. Starting the process this week to pack up to head to Amsterdam for the month of November. So,
cool.
Nice.
Yes.
Been doing dab and stab a lot in Medical Mondays and on IG quite a bit.
Yeah, we're playing the social media roulette card.
Yeah. Yeah, John, it was very cool, man. To be able to the last couple of weeks, be at a bunch of places and hang out and watch you perform, and most recently with Cannajam. And very cool, and I'm happy that you came on here to talk about it with us today, and I appreciate it.
I've been doing this for a lot of years.
Yeah. Yep. And man, and just everybody who came on. I know Josey's not on right now. Amy is not on right now, but
Josie,
Shelly, Ryan Basor came on briefly.
Yeah, everybody, appreciate everybody coming on.
Josie was so cool.
Yeah, Josey is very cool, man. She really has a passion to help people get their records.
My granddaughter Beyonce.
Nice. They get along pretty well. So anyway, just a great show. Just appreciate it from everybody. Rick, wrap it up for us.
Well, everyone on this broadcast has been actively involved at one point or another in spreading the word about cannabis, what it does, how it helps, what the benefits are, why it's not a threat. The fact is, as I mentioned earlier, by our next show, it's possible that this package of bills that we hate will have been voted out of the House committee. We have to take action. This is our last week to be able to appeal directly to the committee members. Please, every single day, commit yourself to writing a letter or making a phone call to get them to stop. John, you wanted to add?
You think it's going to come out of committee?
Yep. They only need 50% to get out of committee. They need 75% to get it out of the House, but only 50 out of committee. And numerically, the Republicans have a 3-vote advantage. So it looks, but we need to still make sure the message is delivered. And that's really my thought today. Continue to move forward, deliver the message. Susan Fisher's on here today. She had some fantastic testimony about her personal journey as a patient. If you stand still next to him for more than 5 minutes, Ray is going to tell you about how he died and was brought back from the love of cannabis. The fact is, when you have people that share their story with authenticity and with gravitas, right, when they really mean it, it changes minds. And if you have a story like that, I encourage you to share it now more than ever before, because our lawmakers are tragically undereducated on our subject, and they need that real face-to-face experience. It's the only thing that's ever really been proven to change hardcore drug haters' minds is a conversation with someone who's had a personal journey of healing. So share your story. That's my message.
Amen.
Amen.
Hey, thanks everybody. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. We'll try it again next week. See you guys.
You guys have a good one. Love what y'all do.
Be well.
Like the
Good work, everybody.